Good evening, everyone. We'll give it a few minutes just to see, allow everyone to join us. We'll give it 2 or 3 minutes and then we'll kick off with the meeting. My name is Val Kershak. I am the Facilities Manager for Tennis Ireland. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar, and we'll give it a few minutes just to let more participants join. Thank you.
Val, can I just say one of our members will be joining us late, if that's okay. It'll be Aisling Lynch from the Ballyjames Duff Tennis Club.
No problem, thank you.
And possibly Anya as well, sorry. Okay, thank you.
No problem at all. Okay, folks, as mentioned, a few minutes just to give everyone a chance to join us. We have about 50 that's joined and more trickling in. Just a quick intro, as said a few minutes ago, my name is Val Kershak. I'm the Facilities Manager for Tennis Ireland. On behalf of Tennis Ireland, I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight and giving a little bit of your time for this very informative webinar we're about to all participate in. Hannah McLaughlin from 2into3 and Arya Bhutani are with us to lead the webinar, answer all of your questions, all of our questions. And obviously the goal is to give us as much information as possible about the upcoming Community Sports Facilities Fund, because everyone's obviously wanting to apply. We're all here for the same reason, and to try to get as much funding for the projects we have. So without further ado, a few bits and pieces about the questions. Primarily, if you could please leave your questions in the chat and we'll cover all of them. Arya is going to work on the back end to try to make sure that we're not doubling up with the questions. So all of your questions will be answered, but leave them in the Q&A, and we'll have a point midway through the webinar and then in the end where all questions will be addressed. Thank you. Hannah, you can take it off.
Thanks, Val. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining on a Tuesday evening. It's difficult, I know, to find time for these things, but just so everyone is aware, the presentation is going to be recorded, so from now, so don't be worrying about trying to scribble down information, and we will be sharing the slide deck that we used tonight with everyone. So you'll be able to watch back the webinar at maybe 0.5 times speed if you need, with the amount of information we plan to cover in the next hour. And you'll have the attached slides, and I've tried to populate some of the notes under some of the slides for further information for you guys on specific information and criteria around smaller details on eligibility and things like that. So my name is Hannah McLaughlin, as Val introduced me. I'm a consultant on the funding team at 2into3, and what we do along with my colleague Arya is support and manage grant applications for sports clubs and NGBs across Ireland. I think we've worked with the majority of sports that we probably all know, but there's always, every year there's always a new one that pops up. So without further ado, let me just go into presentation mode here. Can everybody see that all right? Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so an agenda for tonight, we're going to go through what being grant ready is, because this is often misunderstood. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the Community Sports Facilities Fund, which has previously been known as the Sports Capital Programme. So that is what we will probably refer to. We're still getting comfortable with the name change. Then we will go through the application process of that particular fund. And then, as Val said, we'll do some Q&As. So if you've any questions, pop them into the chat or the Q&A, and Aria will manage them. And we'll kind of take a pause halfway to go through them, because a lot of people will probably have the same questions. And then we will also go through questions at the end. So being grant ready, and what does that mean? So be methodical with this. And something that is often misunderstood is people think we need to have a big strategic plan and lots of details as a club. That is not what we would advise. We would advise having super simple plans as a club. So if that's a couple of you guys that volunteer, you have a committee, sitting down with a blank sheet of paper with the name of your tennis club in the middle, and brainstorming. What do you currently have in place? Who are your members, and what would you like? So in terms of a 3, 5, and 10-year plan, forgetting what funds are available and what you're going to try fit into, what are the ambitions that you guys as a club have, both from a capital point of view, from an equipment point of view. If your passion is getting more young boys and girls into your club, that is a clear ambition. So be specific, but keep it really, really simple. And you'll see if you do applications yourself, not just with the Community Sports Facilities Fund, but through your local authority, your leader office, or other department funds, keeping it super simple will mean that the application process will also fit into that. So never look at a fund and think, okay, so the Community Sports Facilities Fund is going to open next month. What are the requirements of that? Right, let's just fit into the make and model of why that fund was designed. We've seen clubs do that, and it just doesn't work with the amount of detail that these funds require. So this is going back to the who, the what, and the why of you guys as a club. Going back to that image, and I always go back to, is a blank sheet of paper with your name in the middle, going back to basics. And then when a fund comes up, you guys will be better prepared to fit what you guys have already decided as your club into a particular fund. So the key points of all funding streams is the who, the what, and the why. And sometimes we feel really silly when we're saying these words, but it is when we're sitting down to do an application, it is the questions that we keep going back to. And for any of you that have gone through Community Sports Facilities Fund application before, or other ones, if you can answer these questions really, really well, you will find the application process a lot easier. So what is the need? What are you applying for, and why? Is it to increase participation? Is it to attract a particular demographic in your area of maybe young females, getting them into sport? Is it to support people with disabilities, be that intellectual or physical disabilities? Be really, really specific on what is the need for what you're asking for. Who are the users? And if there's anything that you can take away from this slide, is understanding who your members are. And again, sitting down with this, how many underage young boys and girls do you have in your club? How many adults? What is your male and female breakdown? I come from a hockey background, so I know that sport really well, and some clubs would run vets or masters hockey one night a week to get people that may have given up the sport years ago back into the sport. That is a demographic of your member base. So who are your members? Where do they come from, and why do they come into your club? Is it to play tennis recreationally? Is it competitive? Is it social? So really, really, again, keep it simple and understand who your members are. So next, telling your story. And again, we will repeat ourselves a lot in this, but we do that for a purpose, because when you go through your application, there is a lot of repetition, and you want the same elements, so who your members are, to come up in a lot of the different areas of your application, and you want to be consistent with that. So who are the people that will benefit from this project? And I have it here again. Your females and your males in your club, your youths versus your adults. So understanding to the number of, if you've 100 members in the club, who are those 100 members, and which category do they fall into? Do you guys run, in hockey it's masters or vets programs? Do you have social tennis? Who are your recreational or your competitive members? What would you like to fund? What is your ambitious? And be ambitious and specific about what that is. And again, it's going back to not fitting into this particular fund. It is going back to, your ambition as a club, and saying, right, in the next 12 months, what would we like to do? And then thinking 3, 5, and maybe even 10 years down the line to where you'd like to get your club to. And how does this fund fit in with your ambitions? Not how do you fit in with this fund? And then why you should get this over another application. What is your USP? So the hockey club where I first started playing hockey was huge on vets. So I think the vets, they had 4 teams that was just mothers and fathers of members in the club. And when they've gone for applications, that has been their, I suppose, unique selling point in how they've differentiated themselves from other hockey clubs. So again, that goes back to knowing your membership base and who you are as a club. Once you answer these, then think about where is my project? So that's your address of where you guys are based in your air code. How much will your ambition cost? And then how much funding you would like to get from the Community Sports Facilities Fund. We'll go through the details of this later in terms of the different bands, what's available, and how you'll match this. When will you complete the work? So we imagine that the fund, we've been told, is going to open in Q1 of this year. That could be tomorrow, it could be in a week, it could be the start of March. We don't know. But when the application window is open, you will have 8 weeks to complete your application. And then usually from then it takes about 6 to 9 months at the earliest for a club to find out if they've been allocated funds. So in terms of when you will complete the work, you're not going to be doing it this year. It's going to be 2027 earliest. So in terms of your timeline as a club, finances, having the right people involved to manage this project, that is the timeline that you guys should be thinking about. So being grant ready in your project plan, and I have the word KISS in here, which is keep it super simple. And again, I'm going to repeat myself a lot because we have done so many applications and the simplest ones score well. People sometimes think that AI is going to start to read these applications. It's not. It is a person in the department at the other end of this portal that will sit and read your application. So make it, fun and exciting to get your vision and your story across as a club, but keep it simple. So some of the questions, if you guys as a club are starting to think about this fund, which I'm assuming you guys are because you're taking the time to come onto this call. So are you going to go for capital or for an equipment grant? Equipment grant, you can get up to 70,000 euros, and capital will go later. You can get up to 200,000 euros as a local application. Match funding available. So depending on how much money you're going for and the location of your club, you will have to post at least 5% match funding, but we would advise that 20% is what a club should aim for. And it needs to be feasible for your club. We've seen applications before where there's been big loans that have been taken out for match funding, and people it's a burden, taking on a big loan as a club if you don't have a huge amount of volunteers. So having a plan financially of how you're going to complete this project is really important. Title deeds or lease. So do you own the facilities where you are based? Do you have title? That's a yes or a no question. And if not, do you have a lease agreement with whoever owns the land, and how long is that for? We're going to talk a little bit about that later. What are your fundraising activities as a club? This links back in with your match funding. And what can you guys actually raise? And do you have the volunteers to support those activities? Who will manage the delivery? When will the project be delivered? So as we said, it's not going to be in 2026 based on the department's timeline. That's not feasible. What is the impact and its measurement of your project? So say, for example, again, I'm going to go back to what I know. So a hockey club may apply for equipment for hockey sticks, bibs and cones to support a school's outreach program that want to come into the club and to get more people available to play hockey in the area. So be clear on where those people are going to come from. So your new members, where they're actually going to come from, and the demographics of who you're targeting to join your club. Who is the lead applicant is whoever has title to the land. And that is the only lead applicant. So if you're based in a school, the school will most likely own the land. The school is the lead applicant. But it's really important for clubs to understand that this fund is only available for sports bodies. Schools cannot apply for this fund by themselves. So a school needs you, a tennis club or another sports club, in order to access this funding. So if you are in early talks with the school, be confident in that a school needs you to access this funding, and be confident in what you are asking for from the school for this. And then procurement guidelines is something that if you are allocated funds, you have to worry about way down the road. Arya, do we have any questions so far?
So we've got two.
Yeah.
When somebody is asking that they do not own the land and their tennis courts are built on or lease them, So can we apply for funding, and can the funding streams be listed? So I think they don't own the land and they
So
lease
if you
it.
don't own the land, so hypothetically, if you're based in a school or you have your facilities at maybe a community centre or a sports centre, you do not need to own the land, but you need a lease agreement from whoever has title to that land. You will see online that it is a lease agreement of 15 years, but be really careful about this. That is 15 years from the date of your last payment. So it's from the date of your last payment from any funds that you've been allocated. So again, going back to a timeline, that's going to be 2027 earliest. So we always advise 21 years in any lease agreement.
And then somebody's asked, do you need to have planning permission before applying, or is it a condition of the grant of funding?
You don't need planning permission, but you will get extra points if you have planning permission.
Another one that just came in, can the funding be used for paddle courts?
Yes, it can. If that is not a private practice, if that is a sports club, then yes.
Okay, that's
That's
all.
everything for now.
Mhm.
Okay, brilliant. There's always a couple of questions we usually don't know the specifics to, so if there are questions, I will come back to them at a later date. Okay, so the specifics on the Community Sports Facilities Fund, formerly known as Sports Capital. So this is the primary vehicle for the government in the Republic of Ireland. So if we have any tennis clubs from the Northern Ireland, I'm afraid you are not eligible for this particular fund, but I would encourage you to look at Sport Northern Ireland or your local county councils for funding. So it is for the support and development of sports and physical recreation facilities and the purchase of non-personal sports equipment through the country. So that is the definition of why this fund this vehicle is set up and why that they're investing in sports clubs. So it has allocated over 1.4 billion euro to almost 19,000 projects since 1998. So it is a huge fund. Really important here, and I've highlighted it, the program prioritizes 1, participation, 2, accessibility, and 3, sustainability. So if you think of those as 3 key pillars and 3 things if you're doing your application that you want to mention, and I say mention word for word. So I'd encourage you to use the words participation, accessibility, and sustainability throughout your application where appropriate, with targets including 60% national participation in sport by 2027. So as clubs, you want to, within reason, align to this national target of increasing participation. That's why this fund was started. So this grant will assist in the development or refurbishment of sports facilities and the provision of sports equipment. So again, going back to basics, why was this set up? To develop high quality, so we're going to take a pause there, high quality meaning if you guys as a tennis club apply for let's say a new tennis court, really simple, they want to see that this is going to be a finished project with whatever money they allocate you. And it sounds very silly, but it is literally what they mean, that they want to be able to come down and cut a ribbon at a finished project with whatever money that they owe you. So high quality means that you're not going to be coming back in the next round of the Community Sports Facilities Fund in 2 years and asking for more money for the same project. Firstly, because you can't. So you can't ask for money for the same project twice, which has happened in their first couple of rounds, which is now why they're really specific. So it needs to be high quality. And I mean, do once, do it well. So be realistic in what you're asking for and make sure that that is enough to get that project completed. Accessible, this is something that's becoming a stronger pillar in the last round and in this one. Safe, well-designed, sustainable facilities in appropriate locations and to provide appropriate equipment to help maximize participation. So again, when you're thinking of your application, because you can't, for those of you that may not have done this application before, there are character limits on a lot of the answers. So sometimes it's 300 up to 800. So you need to be really precise in the language that you use to get across your vision or whatever it is about your club. So it also prioritizes the needs of disadvantaged areas and groups, such as people with disabilities, in the provision of sports facilities. So going back to something we spoke about earlier, Knowing your members will answer these questions for you. And I mean knowing your members and also knowing where your members come from. So we'll touch on this later, but understanding your catchment area as a club is extremely important to know because it shows that you know your members, but also with the criteria for this fund, if you think of it like an exam or marking scheme, it's really important to know your catchment area. To increase the female participation in sport and encourage the sharing of sports facilities. So although it's not mandatory, again, thinking of this application like an exam, there's going to be a marking scheme and there are points up for grabs if you share your facilities with other sports. So I probably should have mentioned at the start, this has been called Sports Capital. The Sports Capital programme has now been rebranded as the Community Sports Facilities Fund. So if you think of that, they've changed the word sport to community for a very clear reason. And we think the marking scheme for this next round of applications is going to directly correlate with that. So they don't want to be putting all their money into individual sports. Multi-sport has become a huge thing, but also sports clubs have become very clever at how they can diversify their facilities. And you guys as tennis clubs will know your local area well and what other sports or community groups. It doesn't have to necessarily be a sports group, it can be a community group. So that could be a yoga group, a walking club, mums and tots. You can be innovative in what you include and what you can include with the facilities you have, to show that you are open to sharing your facilities. If you are applying for, let's say, 2 extra courts, say for example you're a club that you only have 1 court and you can obviously only accommodate a certain amount of people to play tennis or to use this space. Obviously with the extra 2 courts you're going to be able to increase your membership base, but also open up your facilities to other community groups. So be really clear on that, and the language that you want to use is the word sharing of facilities, and then mention some groups that you think you'd be able to share with. So the amounts available, and I am going to speak about this as if I'm speaking to someone that has never heard of this fund before. So we cover off everything so you guys can make informed decisions about exactly what you want as a club. So there are 3 tiers, if you like, of this fund. You have an equipment tier, then you have a local tier, and then you have a regional tier. So your equipment tier is up to €70,000 towards the equipment that supports the participation in tennis. Anything to do with maintenance, which is lawnmowers, is only up to €40,000. Equipment in general is up to €70,000 unless you are Tennis Ireland. So unless you're an NGB, then you're different. If you are doing small capital works and you do not have title or a lease with less than 15 years, so say for example you want to do paint or other minor capital works, then you can apply for up to €50,000. Capital with title, so owning the land, is a local application and that is up to €200,000. And then a regional application is up to €500,000. We have heard that these are probably going to increase. They increased from 2020 to 2023. We're careful with what we say because we don't know this for a fact, but it's important that you guys are aware that this might happen. We would imagine that the 200,000 local ceiling might go up to 250 or 300,000, and that the regional may go up to 700,000. Again, that is not definitive, so we're not saying that is 100% the case, but we want you guys to be informed about what we as a company are expecting to see. If you are going to go for a regional application, so that is currently 500,000, hopefully it will go up and say it goes up to about 700,000. You will need a letter of support from your NGB, so that is Tennis Ireland, and this has to be an exceptional application. So it needs to be a National Centre of Excellence or something that is not a normal capital application. So I would say if you are a club that is considering this or would like to understand where Tennis Ireland are thinking about, I would reach out to Val and she'll be best able to advise you on if you are eligible, and kind of discussing that further. And then, yeah, just another thing to mention again, schools, third level colleges or ETBs must make a joint application with a local club or sports group. So those organizations need you guys in order to be eligible for this funding. They are well aware of it, schools, colleges, etc. And we want to make sure that clubs are also aware that they, sometimes hold the baton. And if you're going into a school to start to speak about a joint application, which is brilliant, just make sure that you understand before you go in what you guys as a club want, what is your deal breaker, and don't be afraid to bargain hard there. So if you're not in it, you can't win it. So every round, I suppose, we do a lot of analysis on who's applying, what sports are applying for what, and where applications are coming from. So in 2023, over 277 million euro was allocated, and 94% of applicants received something. And that is what I mean by if you do not have an application in, you can't get €1, you can't get anything. Even if you're a very small club and you haven't applied before, I would really encourage you to apply for, even if it's a couple €1,000 of equipment. You only need 5% match funding. Of that, you only need one quote. You don't need title. You don't need to own the land where your club is based, but it gets you familiar with the application process. And I think it's just good practice, and it's money that, we want as many clubs to be applying for. If you're not in it, you can't win it. We can see here applications versus allocations by sport type. Tennis is there, which is brilliant to see. Gaelic Games is and has been the last couple of rounds way ahead of a lot of other sports. But if you look at the amount of applications they have, there's a strong correlation with how much they are allocated. So the higher number of applications in tennis across the country should have a strong correlation with the amount that is getting allocated. So these are just the urban centres will always get more as there is a per capita ratio allowed. So Dublin, Cork, Galway, you see here will be stronger. That is nothing to do with necessarily the quality of applications. That is a per capita ratio that is applied. And then these are the allocations from 2020 to 2023. So you can see there's been a big jump in investment, and we believe that it is feasible that might happen again with this round.
Hannah, if I may stop
Yeah.
you before you jump ahead, there's a few questions. So, is a club restricted in how much in total funding over every application they can be granted?
Say that again.
So, is there a restriction on how much total funding can a club get on their application?
So you're going to fit into either, say, equipment is up to €70,000 or a local application is up to €200,000. So that if you were allocated 100% of what you could possibly apply for, that is your €200,000. If I've understood that question correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then somebody's asked, can we build 2 new courts and clubhouse now with another 2 in 3 years via 2 different grants?
I would say in theory, yes, but you need to be really careful on what grants you are going for and the sequence in your applications. And why I say that is, so say for the Community Sports Facilities Fund, that has specific requirements around you can only get money on a project that has not been started, and I mean not touched. So we've started to speak to a lot of clients about how they might phase their club ambitions. So for example, as a tennis club, if you have a 5-year plan like you might have here and you're saying, right, we need to do our courts, we need to do our clubhouse, XYZ are the items on your list, on your wish list, if you like. How you divide them up, your bang on is really, really important. So say if, for example, if you use this fund to go for, let's say, your 2 courts, depending on the fund that you're thinking of next, if those 2 courts don't get finished by this fund and you're looking for other money towards that same project, I think you will really struggle to find that. If you are keeping your 2 courts as project A and your clubhouse as project B, and you are doing 2 separate funds on the separate projects, then I would say yes. But I would need to, if we will share our contact details, if whoever that is wants to reach out and explain a little bit more detail on what funds that they are thinking of applying for. So Leader is another fund that all of you guys should be aware of. If you're in a Leader area, I would encourage you to look that up online. I can share some more information via Val on that, but they have different eligibility requirements on what they will fund, what they won't fund, and who they will co-fund with. So it is a case-by-case basis, but you really need to understand the full journey of both of those projects being done.
Does it count if we lease from the local golf course our space for courts as a multi-sports facility?
So if the golf course is a private enterprise, then no, you will not. It needs to be a public sports club or community centre or sports facility.
Okay. We wanted to share facilities with the football club across the road from us, and the insurance won't cover this. What can we do?
The insurance won't cover this. I would say, whoever that is, to drop me an email that we will share at the end, and I will contact you and we will go through the specifics of that and how you can get around that.
If we are a sports club that supports 6 sports, can we apply for a regional grant?
That is something that I would encourage you to reach out to Val about. But if you are whatever sport, if you like, so if you're going for a regional application, it is a regional tennis application. So you can't do a regional multi-sport application because you need a letter of support from your NGB that aligns with their objectives, etc., at a national governing body level. So yes, if there is some equipment with that may benefit the other sports that are in your premises, but it needs to be a one sport application, not a multi-sport application.
We have no title, we have no formal lease agreement or pay a lease. Can we get the 50,000 grant? We may be able to get a letter of support from the landowner. Would that suffice?
So a letter of support in terms of this fund is not going to do anything for you. And I only say that because I have seen clubs before get an awful lot of letters of support, upload them, and they don't get you anywhere. So that's why I'm being blunt with that. If you do not have title and you do not have a formal lease, you can still apply for equipment.
Okay. Somebody has written that we have a massive waiting list. We need more courts to accommodate these, but don't have enough land. A local school has land and is open to a joint application. We won't own the land or have a lease initially. Can we still apply? If so, should it be a joint application or just them, just us?
So if you are a club base and you want to do a joint application with a school on their premises, whoever has title needs to be the primary applicant. So that would, from my understanding, be the school. And I would be encouraging you to go in and to get a lease agreement with that school. They need you to access this funding. And say on good merit, we've seen it with previous clients. They have great relationships with the body that they do a joint application with, and there is no formal lease agreement in place. You are relying on the legacy of that relationship in order for those courts, if you like, to still be open to you as a club. So I'd be very careful with that. Again, if you want to drop me an email, I'll share my details at the end and reach out and I can contact you directly around the specifics of how you can get around that.
Okay, we can take the remaining questions after you maybe go through this section, if
Okay.
that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so into the application process. So first of all, Oscar, and why I say it's not a person, but it can act like one. Oscar is the Sports Capital application register online. So this is where, if you like, the magic either does or does not happen. The first thing, if you are currently not registered with Oscar as a club, go and register. Even if you don't end up applying for this fund, it costs you nothing to apply or to open an application here. Costs no money, it doesn't tie you into anything, it is just a new account for your club. The closer that we get to the fund actually opening, the department does start to screen emails and calls to things about the application process. So every club, go and open up an account. All you need is your tax registration number and then login details. If you are going to create an account or you know that there is an account in your club, who has access to that account. So we have seen it time and time again where clubs say, yes, we have an Oscar login. We get the application has opened and they realize, oh, it was so and so that actually has the primary email that used to be involved in the club. They're not involved anymore. We've seen everything with this. If you cannot get into it and access Oscar, you will not be able to apply. If the fund opens, you, as I said, you only have 8 weeks to do your application, and this has caused an awful lot of broken hearts in clubs by something like this, which is step one. So do not make the mistake of thinking, yeah, that'll be fine. I know we have an Oscar login. Go speak to your committee or whoever it is in the club and go and log in and make sure that you can do that, and do not underestimate this. And if you to register, as I said, all you need is your tax reference number, which if you don't have or you don't know it, you can apply online on ROS. It is just to verify that you are a sports body and not a private entity. So it's not opening you up to auditing or tax or checks. It is just ensuring that you are on essentially a sports and games exemption list to make you valid to open an Oscar account. So open your account if you do not have one. And second of all, if you're a club that does have one, make sure that you have those login details. If your current login details are a personal email account of someone in the club or who has been associated with the club, I would advise you strongly to go into the portal. I will show you later. There is a button where you can request that the email attached to the registration be changed, and I would set up a generic email that is associated to only the club and not to an individual, that if they leaves, your Oscar registration goes with them. Again, if that's something you need to do, get it done now. The closer to the fund opening, the more the department will focus on application questions and not these admin questions. They just expect people to be organised. Okay, so if for those of you that have an Oscar login or have been into the portal, this is what you will see. This is your dashboard. So for this upcoming fund, 1, 2, and 3 are the most important. 1 is where you will apply for your grant and submit your application. Number 2 here, the second grey box, is stage 2, if you like, where you will apply for formal approval for an existing grant if you've been allocated capital. And then 3 is where you apply for payment on your grant down the road. All the other boxes of the different colours are there to assist you with various things to do with the pre-application during the application phase. So the kind of peach one is to edit and submit your draft application. I know everything's about editing, and redrafting, so that you will become very familiar with that. The dark green one over here on the right, again, if you have an Oscar login, go in and click this green button, view past grants and applications. The amount of clients that we have worked with that when you initially ask them, have you guys received any previous funding through sports capital or other means, and they say no, we go into their Oscar, this is the first thing we will check, and sometimes it is said, you guys have €100,000 sitting here outstanding that you have not drawn down. I have seen this with my own eyes, so I know that this has happened. Again, some clubs have a high turnover of committee and not everything is always passed over. So make sure you go in and you click the green button and make sure that you have no outstanding grants that you have not drawn down. If you do have any outstanding money in there, find out what it is for, so what your application was for. Can you get that done and get that spent? And if not, you need to email the department and you can request for that to be rescoped. So for example, if you were allocated money in, say, 2020, and it's a previous committee that did it, and you guys as a committee were not aware of that, which has happened, we've seen it multiple times, you have money sitting there towards something that you guys currently don't want to do for the club or doesn't fit in with your current ambitions, email them and ask, can it be rescoped into something that you do want to do now? They usually will allow it within some realistic boundaries that they decide, but ask the question. And also the department don't want to see a club that has not spent funds and has not contacted them, because there's a question of, will that just happen again? They want all of the funds that they allocate to be spent, because in turn that delivers the most amount of projects, that contributes to the department's national objectives of increasing participation. So they will be very clear and aware of that. So don't fall into that trap. And then the kind of luminous pink one is view all previously submitted documents. So you can look at previous quotes, planning docs, etc. So again, go in and I would say sometimes just sit down and have a wander around it, become familiar with it if you plan to be the one of the main people that is going to be doing the application for your club. Okay, the grading criteria from 2023. So in my head, I think of this as an exam where 100% is your maximum score that you can get, which is your A+. So there are 8 scoring criteria in 2023. Again, this could change for this upcoming fund, but I would imagine it's not going to veer massively from this. We will go through these now kind of in detail, but 70% of the score, again, going back to is about the who and the why. Who are you as a club? Who are your members? And why are you applying for the equipment or for the capital works? What is the impact of that going to be? Then 30% of your score goes to technical merits, which we'll go through. And then I put down a ghost at the bottom of this because we don't know what is going to be allocated in terms of your marks towards environmental initiatives and climate adaptation. It definitely will get allocated marks, you know, in every landscape in Ireland and in the world now. Environmental initiatives and climate adaptation is becoming more and more important. So this definitely will feature in your application. Then some other things around population growth and level of existing facilities. So what is eligible and what is ineligible? All of a full list of things are available online. I can give you that link file. It's in a PDF from 2023 and 2020 of all the things that people have applied for or have tried to apply for and they've said no. The bottom line is if it relates to supporting the player in a sport, so that is the participation of myself going to the local tennis club, it will be eligible. If it is to do with the spectator or the running of the club in terms of operational costs, legal costs, viewing stands, it will not be eligible. So again, when you're thinking of is this not, does this support the participation of the player? There are a couple of things that if you present them in a certain way can be. So say for example, floodlighting or lighting is eligible if it is around the field of play or if you have a small walk from your clubhouse to the tennis court, that area will be. Your car parks and your surrounding areas will not be eligible for lighting because that is not supporting the participation in the sport. So natural grass, pitches, tracks, courts, as I said, floodlighting, artificial surfaces, multi-use games areas. Again, if you're going in with a school in a joint application, a multi-use surface might be something that comes up, so be aware of that. Security fencing, ball stop netting, goal posts. If you have a clubhouse, again, really important, only parts of the clubhouse that support the player will be eligible. So that's your dressing rooms, your showers, and your toilets. If you've a bar, a kitchen, etc., not eligible. Building or refurbishment of sports halls, gyms, modifications to sports facilities. So that's your accessibility point of view. Non-personal sports equipment. So again, I'm thinking hockey because I just know the sport so well, but that's your stick, your ball, cones, bibs. That can be timing equipment or a scoreboard, anything that you can say supports the participation of the player. And then some of the things that are oftenly or are kind of interpreted as they are eligible, routine maintenance, no, but you can get your maintenance equipment up to 40,000, like your lawnmower, yes. Private and or commercial operations, your operational costs, viewing stands, no. That is often one that people think that they can get an application for. No, that supports the spectator. Dugouts in terms of hockey, I don't think, maybe you do have them in tennis, to support your players to come in at halftime, yes, are eligible. Bars, kitchens, accommodations, no. A really important one, projects or elements where work has already commenced or where contracts have already been signed, no. So be really careful that this has not started at all, and the Community Sports Facilities Fund is going to enable this project to start. The repayment of loans, the purchase of land or buildings, no. And then applications from schools, ETBs, as I was saying, or colleges that are not made jointly with at least one sports club, which is you guys. So criteria 1, likelihood of increasing participation. This is where you go back to the who, the what, the where, and the why. So you need to be able to describe your current facilities and programs and how this investment will enhance those. And that is down to the level of, if you have changing rooms, how many changing rooms do you have? How many can female tennis players use? How many can male players use? Or are they all for everyone? This is where, again, you need to keep it simple, but be really, really specific around your membership base and those that you want to get into your club. In this area, there's only 800 characters to get this across, which is not a lot. So we usually advise that it's 300 towards the who, 300 towards the why, and then 200 towards the what. That's just a guideline, but it usually fits. So the sharing of facilities, though not essential, extra marks are awarded for sharing facilities. So for clubs that currently don't have anyone else coming into their facilities, I would sit down and have a brainstorm. Is this something that you guys are open to? And is it possible? What can we do? What local community groups could we come in to use our facilities? If you are doing a joint application with a school, as I said, bargain hard. They need you to access this funding. So remind yourself when you're going in about that. So the level of socioeconomic disadvantage in the area, and we'll touch on this in a minute, but we use, and the department will use, something called your Pubble Deprivation Index, which gives your exact location a score based on a number of criteria in an algorithm, if you like. And this is where we're going to speak about your catchment area, which I'm actually just going to go on to the next slide. So we use our office in Pearse Street as an example. So now you know where we are, you can come in and say hello. But you can see that the blue areas here are the more advantageous areas. The light orange getting into the dark orange are the more disadvantaged areas and will receive more points, if you like, in this area. Your address of where your club is based is what it is, so it's not something that you guys can change. We're not saying that you need to be telling fibs about where you guys are based, but going back to what I said at the very start, your catchment area is defined by where your members come from. So if you like, if I take our example here with our office being based in Pearse Street, and say we have members that are coming from an area that is more orange, make sure to include that. So again, know where your members are coming from. Maybe that's just with air codes, but you will have to provide information. The department can come and check up on you that you are being honest here. So represent your club well in terms of understanding where your members are. It will also, so if you can see here, we have a deprivation index on Pearse Street of 3.11. So that is marginally above average, which will limit the amount of points that we can get in this area. But again, where do our members come from can help improve your index relative. Then there is also gives you a lot of other information around lone parent rate, unemployment rate. So say, for example, you're in an area that has a high unemployment rate. Can you link something that you guys are doing as a club to support that? If there's a high low parent ratio, can you guys run some summer schemes where parents can come down and they can exercise while their kids are learning to play tennis? So you can be smart with how with initiatives you plan to run in the future can link in with the demographics and the story of where you guys are based. So that's something to be aware of here that a lot of people will miss. So technical merits of the project. First of all, your quotes and planning. So you only need one quote for your application. And if you are successful with your application and you are allocated money, you will then need 3 quotes and you will have to get your first one redone. You are not tied to your first quote, but you will have to get 3 in the future, but you only need 1 for your application. Then in terms of planning, you do not need planning permission, but if you can get planning permission, you will be awarded extra marks. And then please, as a club, do not make, I said you can make easy mistakes in this area with uploading the wrong documents, uploading documents in the wrong area. So please don't make those mistakes. If the application is ready to go and it's ready to be submitted, get someone that is outside of your club to read it, or get someone that has not seen the application before to read through it and make sure that you haven't made any mistakes that are going to disqualify you for a very honest reason. There is a second chance facility that the department allow if you've made a genuine mistake to go back, but we don't advise people to rely on that to submit an application and say, look, if anything comes up, I'll go back and change it, because you can only do that once. So make sure when you're submitting your application that you are happy with it and there aren't any easy mistakes. A big thing that happened in 2023 is AI does not know your club better than you. I think we all use AI in everyday life, but using it correctly here is really, really important. AI is not going to know your club better than you. Whatever you tell it is the information that it will have. So please, if you're doing your application yourself and you're opening a question, tell me about your club, do not put in an answer that ChatGPT or any other GPT has come up with. Do the work yourself first as a club, and then you can use that if there's a character limit to reduce your word count, etc. Again, as I said, it is a person reading your application. It is not AI, and usually AI can be pretty obvious. And something that is really important, if AI is the basis of your application, you are most likely going to sound like other clubs that have done AI as well. So you will sound like everyone else. Your application will not stand out. So be genuine and authentic in what you're saying and how you get your story across. And then in terms of sustainability, if you guys do something as a club, make sure you get that across. Look to link in with your local action plan or any Tennis Ireland objectives or initiatives and how you can link in with that. Again, keep it simple and be specific. Level of own funding available. So this is linked to your deprivation score. So if you are based in a more advantageous area, your match funding requirement will be higher. It can be as low as 5%, but that is only for very, very small parts of the country. So we say it is best practice to aim for 20% with a minimum of 10%. But this is a grading scale, if you like. So the more match funding that you guys can put forward as a club, the higher a score here, up to 6 marks, that you will get. So if you are in a public catchment index above 10, so in a quite advantageous area, you're going to need to put in 40% match funding to get your most marks. But be realistic here with what you guys can afford as a club. Extra points awarded for those groups willing to finance more of the project. This is where also I would recommend that you guys become familiar with Clan Credo and Community Finance Ireland. They are both they're financial institutions, but they have been set up with the purpose of supporting not-for-profits, which is you guys as sports clubs. They provide low-interest social loans, and they have gone through this process with hundreds of applications in different sports before. So if you're match funding, if you're going to need to take out a loan, I would recommend that you reach out to Clan Credo or Community Finance Ireland or even your local credit union to see what is available and what you guys need, and speak to them about what you're thinking of doing and how they can assist you. They're brilliant. We work with them all the time. Then the level of previous funding that you have in the last 10 years, you cannot change this factor. But as I said earlier, go into Oscar, click on, I think it's the green button, and see what you have previously applied for. Either you have received funding in the last 10 years or you have not. I might pause there, Arya, and see how we're getting on with the questions, because I know there's a lot of information in that.
There's a few if you'd like to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can this grant be used to purchase land?
No.
Okay. Is the success rate for clubs putting up 20% funding significantly higher than those putting up 10%? So I think
I
this
would
is about
imagine the
match
answer
funding,
is yes. So we wouldn't have access in terms of the data that we collect to applications other than the clients that we have done. But yes, you will get awarded higher marks the higher amount of match funding that you get. Yeah.
Our committee is changing. We've used the secretary email address. Will that be sufficient? We didn't tie it to a name.
Yes, that's perfect. Once the address is attached to the clubs, the secretary, the treasurer, the president, that is what we would advise. Yes, that can just be passed over to the new committee.
Mm-hmm. Our tennis club rents the courts from our community association. Can we apply for capital funding in conjunction with the community association?
Yes, you can. So whoever is titled as the primary applicant and then the tennis club will go in as a joint application via a license agreement.
If we are on golf club grounds for the past 40 years but have no formal lease agreement, will it suffice to get a lease agreement in place over the next month or two?
Yes, once you can submit that lease with your application, so yes.
If you have applied for planning but haven't yet received permission, do you get any extra marks over what you would get if you haven't applied for permission yet?
No, no.
Okay. Um, uh, can you make an application for groundworks as well as the tennis courts?
Yes, certain groundworks. So things like rubber, we're starting to see rubber things under pitches are no longer eligible due to sustainability and climate things. Whoever your supplier is that is doing your pitch should know this inside out if they've done it before, so they would be able to best advise you on that.
Does this grant exclude a project also funded by another grant, example, a city or a council grant for a sustainability project?
So I'd need to know what the project is. So if it's a sustainability project, that could be an initiative or that could be something like getting new floodlights. So again, if you reach out to me, whoever that is directly, I would need to know the specifics. But the Community Sports Facilities Fund, so when it was Sports Capital and it was initially first set up, they were very happy to co-fund, if you like. They've become less and less happy to do so because you're relying on, I suppose, more moving mechanisms to get a project done, and they want to see finished projects. But it doesn't mean that it can't happen, but it just can get tricky and you need to understand the sequence of events. So I would encourage that person, whoever it is, to reach out to me. I'll get in contact and I can ring you over the phone and we can go through the details.
Mhm. On council community-owned grounds, can two clubs collaborate for shared facilities? That is, both apply for 200K towards the project, both will have lease agreements in place for more than 20 years.
Yes, but it's one application now, so it's not two clubs applying for 200,000 each. It's your name can only be on one application. But in theory, yes, you can do a joint thing with more than one sport.
Okay. What is the criteria to qualify for regional?
It depends on the sport, and that is again something I would encourage you to reach out to Val to discuss. You obviously need a letter of support from Tennis Ireland, but in terms of getting that, it has to fit in with what else they're doing and what they want as an NGB. So I'll leave that up to that club can maybe reach out to Val to discuss further.
If
But
we
sorry,
already
in terms of the fund, it's a much bigger project, if you like, than the 200K. So putting in a new pitch is not going to suffice. It has to be, if you like, a centre of excellence or have a much higher impact than just your regeneration of club facilities.
If we already have floodlights, can we apply for funding to replace them? The current poles are too high and our neighbors aren't happy.
Yes, you can once you haven't started that project to get new ones, but yes, you can replace.
Our club has received funding from Sports Capital on the last two occasions. Will we be restricted this time around, although what we are applying for will be very different?
You're not restricted, but just on the criteria of previous funding, you won't get your full marks. You will get lower marks because you have received previous funding, but it doesn't restrict you in any way other than that. So no.
I think this must a club have applied for planning for the proposed project?
No, but you get more marks if you do. So I would encourage you to, but it's not a requirement. It won't make you ineligible.
That's all the questions for now.
Okay, brilliant. So then last but not least is your appendices. Now, like I am saying around Oscar to get familiar with the different parts and tabs, I would also sit down and get familiar with what appendices you need and what appendices you don't need. And there can often be mistakes here. So there are 7 appendices, if you like. There's 2 under the same number. Appendix 1 is your template loan offer. So that is to support your match funding if you need a loan. Appendix 2 is a template to be completed where planning permission is not required. So if you know you do not need planning permission for your proposed works, that is not enough. You need to get that signed off by either someone in the local council or an engineer, an architect, or QS, someone that is professionally knowledge, if you like, to sign that off. All these appendices are online. What I will say is do not get them filled out yet. All of the appendices are branded with the sports capital branding and logos. So we envisage this may change. So become aware with the appendices, but just wait until the fund is announced, because if they've rebranded it, you're going to have to go get it redone anyway. And they haven't said or made any information around that they're going to accept old and new formatted ones. So just to be aware of that. Appendices 3 is where you'll find the information on your license agreements between parties, if that's you and another sports club or community group, or on joint applications with schools, ETBs, colleges, etc. Appendix 4 is the template for your landlord to confirm continued access. So that is where you don't have title, or for those capital allocations of €70,000 or less, very rare circumstances where that does get filled out for that reason. Appendix 5 is your template to satisfy title requirements to show that if you own your land, that you do own your land. There's a folio number for that they will require. And then your 5A is if where your club is operated is owned by the Minister for Education, and we've seen other versions of this where it's actually sometimes the Minister for Defence that owns the land, but anything to do with schools and who owns the land is Appendix 5A. It just needs to be signed off by whoever has title. We've also seen that it's with various religious orders or trusts. That is all your Appendix 5A where that all falls into. And then Appendix 6 is all about your sustainability measures. So just to recap, being grant ready is about understanding yourself as a club, and then does this fund fit you, not how can you fit the fund. Do we have adequate title? If you do, it's Appendix 5. If you don't forget, you still need to get that confirmed. It's Appendix 4. Do we share with other clubs or schools? Yes. Can we get that in a formal license agreement? Because that will get you extra marks with this application. How much is the total project going to cost? And can you get your detailed estimates of that? If you are going for equipment, where possible, I would encourage you to get your quote from one person who can provide all the equipment from one place. You've submitted your one quote, you get allocated funds, you are not frozen there.
Hannah, everything okay?
Can you hear me now? I think I froze there for a minute.
Yes, we can hear you
Yes.
and see you okay, yeah.
You can see my screen still?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Apologies about that. So I was just saying, how much is the project going to cost and the estimates of that? The quote that you submit to your application is not the supplier that you have to go with if you are allocated funds. Do we need planning? Yes. Planning approval application, no. Appendix 2. How will we fund it? So your loan offer is Appendix 1. Your club, you will have to show evidence through your club bank account. Why we deserve funding, that's your 800 characters. And then your draft, your proof and submit. Your common pitfalls, please do not underestimate these. We have seen loads of applications where there are parts not fully complete and templates are not used. You will not get your marks if the correct template is not used. Your evidence of match funding, if you have the money in your account for your match funding, but you have not included your bank statement, it will be void. And all you need from, if it's Clan Credo, Community Finance Ireland, a credit union or a bank, just a loan in principle letter is enough. That's all you need for your application stage. Wrong documents uploaded, we've seen this again. Duplicates or otherwise absent, where are they saved now? So if someone has, say, your planning or your title deeds, does everyone in the club have access to them? insufficient time, do not leave things till last minute. Technical difficulties, Oscar throws a tantrum, and next thing the portal is closed and you can't get everything that you need in time. No Oscar login, of course, we said, please do that now, and these will lead to an invalid application. And then these are all of our contact details. You will receive this PowerPoint, and please, for those that I've already said, with some of the questions, to contact me, or if anyone needs any further support, please do so.
There's a few more questions, Hannah, if you're...
Yeah.
Can we apply for equipment and capital on one round of funding?
Yes, you can, but it all goes under, it will go in as a local application, but you can include equipment under that, yes. But it is 200,000 in total for the equipment and the capital, not your 70,000 euro for equipment plus your 200,000 capital.
We plan to move internal walls so that kids can play table tennis when the weather is too bad for tennis. Is this eligible?
Yes, to just make sure that you get across that it is to promote the participation of the sport.
You say planning is required, but any planning application now usually takes, say, 6 months, so we won't have that by submission date. How? I think Hannah froze again.
Yes, I think we might have lost Hannah there for a second. We'll give her a few minutes. Arya, are there any questions you could take from the ones that are in the chat?
Just the two, and I think those are the only ones that I cannot take.
I think Hannah's back there.
I am back. Apologies. This is giving you guys a real life example of when Oscar doesn't want to comply, the frustration that can ensue. I think I'm back and I can see and hear everyone.
Yes.
Apologies. Is Arya still on? Yes.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. You say planning is required, but any planning application now usually takes, say, 6 months, so we won't have that by the submission date.
So you don't have to have planning, but you get extra marks for planning.
Okay. And if the story is greater than 800 words, can you attach an additional page with further information?
No. No, so 800 is the max. You cannot attach additional information because I think every applicant then would be attaching reams and reams of stuff. So 800 characters is all that you can apply, and for others it's only 300. So again, keep it simple, be precise, and that is where you can use AI. If you have the answer that you guys have generated as a club, use AI to try help you reduce the word count.
These are the only questions that I can see.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, I will, of course, the recording of this will be shared with you, as will the slides with my contact details. So for those that have already asked questions that I haven't answered, please reach out and I will contact you. And if anyone else has other questions when you watch back and try to digest some of the information and you do have questions, please reach out. I've just seen a message there, Michael. When do we expect it to open? Formally, it has been said that it is Q1 of this year. And that is all that we know. In the last round, I think it opened during the summer holidays. So for clubs that were doing joint applications with schools, it was a nightmare. I would say it will open at the most inconvenient time, to be honest with you, but I don't know when that is going to be. It could be tomorrow. It could be the middle of March. Is there another question there?
Yeah, I think I can take that one, Hannah.
Okay.
You should. It was in regards to the recording. You should receive the recording from Tennis Ireland, from our communications department. But then again, Hannah, if you want, we can coordinate, and if you want to send the slides to myself, and then we can circulate that to everyone. As well, I've put my personal email in the chat there for everyone. But Hannah, if we can add it to your slides as well, just if anyone's missed it, please. And then the last one for me would be, if when you get any questions directly to you guys, 2into3 from clubs, I'd appreciate it if you can share those with myself as well, because we'd like to understand the needs of clubs as well. It's helpful for us to have that data just to see what are kind of the highest points and needs for clubs at the moment.
I've just seen another question come in there about paddle, and an interesting point I should have noted. Paddle don't currently have a NGB that is registered, if you like, with Sport Ireland, so you cannot go for a regional application as you don't have an NGB to give you a letter of support. So just to be aware of that. But if whoever that is in thinking in the paddle world wants to reach out and discuss the specifics, please do.
There's another one that says, how long is the approval process once it is opened?
That's a great question. So when the application opens, you have 8 weeks to submit your application. After that, it is usually 6 to 9 months at the earliest, but again, it depends on the department. That is not a strict guideline on that timeline. But thank you, Val, and to everyone for giving up time tonight. And hopefully you guys feel more equipped and informed as a club to meet Oscar and to combat an application.
Thank you, Hannah. For all of us who've dealt with Oscar, we know he is very moody.
Very moody indeed.
Thank you for to yourself and to Arya for a very informative webinar. I hope everyone got a lot of good information and they enjoyed it. And as both Hannah and myself said, please reach out if you have any questions, so we can help to the maximum of our abilities, and we put in some good applications and get some good funding for tennis and all related projects. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mel. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.